Hello and welcome to a new reading challenge. Slightly different setup here and the camera angle isn't fantastic, but we're going to ignore that because I'm sat at my computer right now, so you can see my lovely art wall behind me. This challenge, as you can tell from the title, I'm actually super excited about. I'm going to be reading a new release from each month so far this year, so January, February, March, April and May, that I haven't heard anything about. Now, I'm pretty into the bookish community. I of course film YouTube videos, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. Other than reading, that's the only form of entertainment I really consume. I also use Bookstagram quite a lot. I'm not so much into book Twitter because I find it a little bit intimidating and anxiety inducing, but what we can basically tell is I hear about a lot of new releases, but there are so many that it's completely impossible for me to have heard about all of them. So I found this website, which I will link down in the description box. It is a blog and it's called Novel Night, and they have fantastic lists on their website of new releases for the year of 2020. Presumably they have it for previous years as well. The blog is put together by Austin and Katie, and like I said, that will be linked down in the description, so do go and check it out. So these aren't necessarily exhaustive lists of all of the books that have come out so far this year, but this was the closest I could get. I couldn't really find anywhere that listed them all, that also listed details of, you know, what those books were about, and so this website is super helpful for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the months and look at the books available and choose a book, and then I'm going to order those books, and then the next check-in I will be hauling them. The only month I'm not going to be looking for is January, because I actually already have a book on the way to me for January. It just so happens that a book that I recently ordered fits for this particular challenge, which is fantastic. So let's start with February. So first up we've got a number 2 in a series, so that's not going to work. All the Stars and Teeth I have heard of. Belle Revolt I have heard of. Deathless Divide is book 2 in a series. Ember Queen is book 3 in a series. The Queen's Assassin I have heard of. The Stars We Steal by Alexa Dunn I have not heard of. So engagement season is in the air. 18-year-old Princess Leonie Leo Kolberg, heir to a faded European spaceship, only has one thing on her mind: which lucky bachelor can save her family from financial ruin. So this feels like sci-fi, fantasy, romance, so that's potentially interesting. Upright Women I have heard of. Cloak of Night I've heard of and is in a series. Heart of Flames is in a series. Honor Lost is in a series. Ink in the Blood by Kim Smajkal. Sorry, I've probably butchered that particular name. This is first in the series. So let's see, what's this one about? A lush, dark YA fantasy debut that weaves together tattoo magic, faith and eccentric theatre in a world where lies are currency and ink is a weapon, perfect for fans of Leigh Bardugo and Kendara Blake. That one sounds interesting too. See, you can see now why I wanted to do this, because there are so many good books that come out and I just don't ever hear about half of them because there's only so many books that people talk about. The next one is another one I haven't heard of and another first book in a series. In the Shadow of the Sun by E.M. Castellan. I think I've heard of that author before. 1661 Paris, so this is historical fiction. And Magicians, so historical fantasy. So historical fantasy with court politics and arranged marriages. Interesting. Night Spinner by Addie Thorley, another one haven't heard of and is a first in a series. So this looks like war-based historical fantasy. Sensational is book 2 in a series. Storm from the East is book 2 in a series. The Unspoken Name I have heard of. The Unwilling by Kelly Braffett. This looks like a fantasy with unlikely pairings and an uprising. Chasing Cassandra is a series. Foul is Fair by Hannah Capin. This is one I have not heard of. Okay, so this is a witchy revenge type story. Sounds quite contemporary in style. Glitch Kingdom by Sheena Bokweg. Sorry if I've got that wrong, probably have. Oh, this sounds interesting. So this is unlikely allies overthrowing a queen, but they are in a video game. So that's very, very different. Then we've got Of Curses and Kisses, which I've heard of. The Life Below is second book in a series. Highlander in a Pickup is second in a series. Black Leviathan by Burned Purplease. Moby Dick in a World of Dragon Hunters. Interesting. I think this might be translated as well, so that's interesting. So this one's dragon fantasy. Then we have Rebel Wing by Andrea Tang, which I also haven't heard of and also looks like it might be dragon fantasy. Black Market Media Smuggler and a Scholarship Student. Okay, so this is a cyber dragon and it sounds like there's some mysterious thriller elements to this one, so that's interesting. Red Hood by Alana K. Arnold. I haven't heard of this one either. You are alone in the woods, seen only by the unblinking yellow moon. Your hands are empty. You are nearly naked and the wolf is angry. Interesting. The Shadows Between Us I have a copy of and have heard of. The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dowell. Debut novel. Can a girl who risks her life for books and an alien who loves forbidden pop music work together to save humanity? This road trip is truly out of this world. A beautiful and thrilling read for fans of Marie Lu and Veronica Roth. That sounds really interesting. All art, books and creative expression are illegal, but Ellie breaks the rules by keeping a secret library. When a book goes missing, Ellie is terrified that the Allori will track it back to her and kill her. And then the other character was born in a lab and raised to be emotionless. I think this is going to be the one. This sounds really, really interesting. We'll carry on. We're nearly at the end of the list anyway. We Unleash the Merciless Storm is the second book in a series. Wild Wild Rake is a continuation of a series, and that's it. No, it's definitely going to be The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dowell. So now we need to see if we can find this book. Now I would like to try and use Hive if I can. Hive is a website in the UK, although they do ship internationally I believe, but they're a website in the UK that sell books, of course, but they support independent bookstores. By buying books through them, you're supporting independent bookstores. So I kind of want to try and use this particular website if I can. So let's see if they have The Sound of Stars. Oh dear, it's not looking promising, is it, off the bat? Let's search by author name instead. Alicia Dowell. No, they don't have it. Okay, let's try Wordery. I like Wordery because it's not Amazon, but it's usually fairly Amazon style prices, and they've got good shipping. So The Sound of Stars. What I will say is that their selection at the moment, because of lockdown, is very, very limited. Their stocks are running low, so they don't have it either. Okay, what about Waterstones? I mean, I will order from Amazon as a last resort, but I would prefer not to if I can help it. So, Sound of Stars. Watch and See. I'm now going to not be able to get this book even from Amazon, and I'm going to be so gutted. There we go. Okay, so they have it on Amazon, so I'm probably going to have to buy it through Amazon. So let me add that to the basket here. Okay, so that's February's book sorted, and we've got January done already. So now let's look at March. So in March, first we've got Chain of Gold, which everybody and their mother has heard of, and I have actually already read it. Cursed, an anthology of dark fairy tales. Ooh, interesting, because I've been really wanting to get more into anthologies this year, and this includes stories from Neil Gaiman, Charlie Jane Anders, M.R. Carey, Christina Henry, and more. Unique twists on fairy tale conceit of the curse. Right, that's really tempting. I'm really interested by that. Docile I have heard of. I do actually want to read that, but it's really difficult to get hold of in the UK. Havenfall I have heard of. House of Earth and Blood I have heard of. Mermaid Moon by Suzanne Cockle. Interesting. So that sounds kind of like A Little Mermaid. I have to say that's not my favourite genre. I don't mind mermaid fantasy, but it's not my favourite. The Midnight Lie I've heard of. The Vanishing Deep by Astrid Schultz. Rings a bell. I don't know where I've heard of it, but I've definitely heard of it. The Warrior's Curse is the third book in a series. The Winter Duke by Charlie Eliza Bartlett. I don't think I've heard of this one. Duke's daughter is the only survivor of a magical curse. Okay, that one sounds part Sleeping Beauty, part Anastasia. Interesting. I'm still more tempted by the anthology, which I'll probably have more of a difficult time getting hold of, to be honest, so I might need to choose a backup from this list. When We Were Magic I have heard of. Wicked As You Wish I have heard of and have a copy of the Ark, actually, which I got in a Fairy Loot box, so that's cool. Witches of Ash and Ruin by E. Lattimer. I don't think I've heard of that one. Witchcraft blended with ancient Celtic mythology. Interesting. Oh, 17-year-old Dana Walsh is struggling to cope with her somatic OCD, the aftermath of being outed as bisexual in her conservative Irish town, and the return of her long-absent mother, who barely seems like a parent. So, kind of heavy then. So it's like murder mystery, but with witches and lots of life problems. Okay. The Raven and the Dove by Caitlyn Davis. Haven't heard of this one. This is the first book in a new series. Princess longing to be free, a bastard aching to belong, fate brought them together, now destiny will tear them apart. A Phoenix First Must Burn I have heard of. Bonecryer's Moon have heard of, and I actually have a copy of. Defy the Sun has a beautiful cover, but is book 2 in a series. Spindle and Dagger by J. Anderson Coates. Literary novel. That's a bit of a different genre for me. Medieval Welsh Warband. That's a bit different. Oh, it's also historical literary fiction. I think that might be a little bit too difficult for me, especially for a reading challenge, so we'll pass that one. Girls with Razor Hearts is book 2 in a series. Smoke Bitten is book 12 in a series. The Electric Air is a series. The House of the Cerulean Sea I have heard of. Between Burning Worlds is a series. The City We Became I've heard of. The Empress of Salt and Fortune I have heard of and actually would like to read that. Imagine Me is a series. Lord Holt Takes a Bride, book 1 in a series, which looks like it's probably adult smutty romance from the cover, I would guess. Yeah. 3 debutantes who get more than they bargained for when it comes to the mating habits of scoundrels. It's interestingly worded, isn't it? Not sure I'm quite in the mood for that at the moment. Not that I have a problem with smut, I actually quite like to read smut, but it looks like it's also historical fiction smut, which is not really my thing. Night of the Dragon is in a series. 7 Endless Forests by April Genevieve Tuscholk, which I have not heard of. Oh, it's a standalone, but it is a companion novel to The Boneless Mercies, which I haven't read, so I would probably want to read that first. We'll have to skip past that. The Sisters Grimm by Menna van Praag. No, I think it's gonna be the anthology, isn't it? It's gonna have to be the anthology. If not, it will be Witches of Ash and Ruin. That's the backup. Oh, maybe it's the... No, it's Witches of Ash and Ruin is the backup, isn't it? Okay, so... Cursed, an anthology of dark fairy tales. Let's start with Hive. Ah, they have it. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so we're adding that one to the basket. Happy, 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 happy. Right, so let's move on to April. So, April. Bonds of Brass, I have heard of. Chosen Ones, I have heard of. Ruthless Gods, I've heard of, and it's the second in a series. Sword in the Stars, second in the series, and I've heard of. The Empire of Dreams, I have heard of, and actually have a copy of, and it's also a sequel. Sort of. It says that it's Fire and Thorns 4. It's kind of more, it is, but it's also slightly spin-off, but you should read the original trilogy before you read it. The Glass Magician by Caroline Stiva, which I have not heard of. So, what if you could turn into the animal of your heart anytime you want? That sounds mildly interesting. Weave the Lightning by Coriel Lee. Empire Revolution Magic. So, Unlikely Allies. What I Like About You by Marissa Cantor. A Love Triangle with more than 2 people. Okay, so this is online dating, possibly a little bit of catfishing and baking. Interesting mix. Deep Light by Frances Harding. Okay, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea meets Frankenstein? Come on, that sounds really cool. And then The Elysium Girls by Kate Pentecost. 10-year game between life and death pits, the walled Oklahoma city of Elysium, including a girl gang of witches and a demon who longs for humanity against the supernatural in order to judge mankind. Okay, so this one has the competition trope in it, which, if you know anything about me, it's one of my favourite tropes ever. This one is pulled ahead, but Deep Light also sounds incredible, so that is very much going on my TBR. Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. This is a new series by Juliette Marillier. I didn't know she was actually still writing books, so that's interesting. I haven't actually read anything by Marillier, but I have heard of her, and I know that she's really like a staple in fantasy, so that's interesting. Okay, evil stepmother type story. Cool, cool. Race the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst. Okay, this sounds like another competition trope. Oh, and this one's standalone. Interesting. Was the other one? Doesn't say if it's standalone, but if it was standalone, well, it doesn't actually say it's #1 in a series either, so that might be standalone too. Yeah, that one's a competition trope too. This is going to be hard. The Deck of Omens is a second book in a series. The Girl and the Stars by Mark Lawrence I have heard of. The Ranger of Marzana by John Scovron. Sorry if I've said that wrong. Interesting. I'm still stuck between the 2 competition trope stories. Don't Call the Wolf by Alexandra Ross. A fierce young queen, neither human nor lynx, who fights to protect a forest humans have long abandoned. Ooh, that sounds interesting too. I'm still invested in the competition trope ones, and then the last one is Incendiary, which I haven't heard of, but I do know that I actually had checked this list beforehand because I haven't received my April Fairy Loot box yet, and I needed to know which book was going to be in there, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Incendiary, and you'll have seen that unboxing by the time you see this video anyway, so I will link it and you will be able to see if I was right. If not, I've just excluded a book for no reason. So we're between Elysium Girls and Race the Sands, and to be honest, I'm drawn to Elysium Girls. Trusty Amazon. See, this is the problem. If you try to cut out Amazon, it's virtually impossible to do it because they're the only place that reliably have all the books, which is really, really sad, but you know, what can you do? Okay. So that was April. We're now on to the final month, which is May. So let's see what May has for us. So first off, Aurora Burning, second in the series, and I've heard of it. Dark Skies, second in the series. Forged in Fire and Stars by Andrea Robertson, I have heard of. The Betrothed, I have heard of. The Dark in Between by Elizabeth Hribb. Terrible accident brings 16-year-old Casey Everett's life to a halt. Literally, pronounced dead. Pronounced dead on the beach during the year-end harbour party, Casey's sudden return to the living is shadowed by the drowning of his best friend Liddy. Wow, that escalated quickly. Okay, so this sounds like it's almost angel horror fantasy. Interesting mix. The Life and Medieval Times of Kit Sweetly, I have heard of. The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hole, which has a stunning cover. We have mermaids again, so potentially not going to be my favourite. Okay, so this is like pirate fantasy. Okay. House of Dragons, I have heard of. Queen of the Unwanted is second in a series. Say Yes to the Duke, 5th in a series. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I have indeed heard of, hasn't everyone? This Coven Won't Break, 2nd in a series, and I've heard of it. Nothing Compares to the Duke, 3rd in a series. The Archer at Dawn, 2nd in a series. The Jewel Thief by Jeanne Mobley. Lush slow burn romance set in 17th century France. Oh, this is tricky because I really enjoy the in prison at the beginning trope, but I'm not sure that 17th century slow burn romance is really my thing, but it's only a choice between this and the mermaid pirate fantasy. Oh, and this one includes Asian folklore. It does sound like it's got Japanese inspirations, and I think it's probably own voices because Tokuda is a Japanese surname, I'm pretty sure. Let's see if Hive have this one. If they don't have this one, maybe they have the other one and I can just decide based on that. So The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea. They don't have this one. What was the other one called? The Jewel Thief. Doesn't look like they have that one either, in which case I will go with the Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea. Let's see where we can get it. Yeah, of course, Amazon have it. See, this is what I mean. So if any of you know anywhere where I can buy books and support independent businesses in the UK, then please let me know, because I do try. You can see that I try to buy from places other than Amazon, and it's just virtually impossible. But anyway, we have The Sound of Stars, Elysium Girls and The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea on Amazon, and we luckily were able to find Cursed, an anthology, via Hive. Hello, so it's actually only the next day, but I've already had delivery from Amazon of most of the books, so I'm going to open them on here for you, and I'm going to start with the one that I haven't actually told you about yet. This is the one for January, so I think it's actually shorter than I anticipated. That's fine. Okay, so we have Hearts Are Jerks by Gabrielle Harbury, and this is actually a contemporary story about poly relationships. So the main character's parents are in a polyamorous relationship, and then I think it's about her entering into a poly relationship. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I feel like it's going to be really interesting and hopefully upbeat. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and like I said, it's quite a lot shorter than I anticipated. It is 215 pages, and then at the back there's an author note about poly relationships, which is really interesting, and there's an about the author section. So so the author is actually poly, which is great. I really was hoping that this would be own voices, and it is, so I'm really excited to read this one, and I will probably pick it up very soon because, well, I'm doing this challenge, but also this probably will be the first one that I read because I'm really excited for this one. So I was then super excited to realise that this actually came out in January this year, and so could form part of this reading challenge. So that one I'm super excited about. And then I have the rest here, which we have already discussed. Well, not the rest. We don't have the one from Hive books here, so we'll probably have to wait a while for that one. But we've got these for now. Okay, so we have Elysium Girls by Kate Pentecost, which it confirms in the author's note is a debut novel, so that's exciting. Then we have the Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hall. The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea is also a debut novel, so that's really cool as well. So this could like almost cross as a debut novel challenge, but it's not. And this one is actually quite short as well. This one's 357 pages. How long was Elysium Girls? This one feels quite heavy. 394 pages for Elysium Girls. I'm loving these covers, by the way. And then we have The Sound of Stars by Alicia, Dowell, which has a bright pink naked hardback, which I love. And Alicia Dowell is a former librarian, which, hooray for librarians. So those are the first 4 books for this challenge. I'm still waiting for Cursed, the anthology, which is the final book, which, like I said, that one might take a little while to arrive. We're still in May right now, so I think I will probably start in on this reading challenge fairly soon and just wait for the last book to arrive whilst I'm doing the reading challenge. But I'm super, super excited for this. Super. Okay, so this has literally just this second arrived from Hive, and I do just want to quickly say that I am actually super impressed with Hive, because they said on their website that at the moment deliveries are taking much, much longer because of everything that's going on in the world, which is fine. So I wasn't expecting to receive this until like next week at the earliest, but this has arrived in basically 3 days, which is fantastic. So we obviously already know which one this one is, but let's open it up. And here it is, Cursed, A Wish is a Terrible Thing. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one and all of these stories, to be honest. And like I said, I'm really surprised by how quickly I managed to get hold of all of these books. I was thinking it was going to take a lot longer because of everything that's going on in the world right now, so I'm actually super impressed that I've managed to get them so quickly. Hello, so it's the 1st of June, and so I thought I'd start this reading challenge, and I'm going to start with Hearts Are Jerks by Gabrielle Harbury because it's the shortest book on this TBR, so I'm thinking I should ease myself into the challenge with this particular book. It's also a poly story, so it's queer, and it's Pride Month this month, but luckily a lot of the other books on this TBR are either by or contributed to by authors who are either black or people of colour, so hopefully that means that I've got a good sort of scope of representation and support happening in this particular reading challenge, but I am going to be trying to incorporate black authors more into my reading. Hey, so it's Wednesday the 3rd now, and I finished Hearts Are Jerks last night and I liked it. I really liked the poly rep that was in here, surprisingly enough. I thought the author did a really good job of showing what poly relationships can be and how they can work, and also making it clear that it won't work the same way for every polyamorous relationship, just like no 2 relationships between just 2 people are ever exactly the same, and what works for one couple won't necessarily work for another couple, and what works for one polyamorous relationship won't work for another. So I think the author did a really good job with that. I didn't feel like the plot was particularly gripping until we got sort of maybe 2/3 of the way through. That's when the plot started to become more interesting, and while I'm not necessarily a plot-driven reader, I do think that plot is more important in a contemporary novel because you don't have the same sort of world building and other things to capture attention as you would in a different genre like fantasy. You'd have an interesting magic system maybe to keep you guessing and keep you intrigued. If you are dealing with sci-fi, then you might have those scientific elements that are creating that interest. So I feel like in contemporary it really has to be there with the plot, and that was missing for the first sort of 2/3 for me. There was a little bit of setup for where the plot was going, but it was also a little bit obvious where at least one element of the plot was going, which is something I actually ended up tabbing so I wouldn't forget to talk about it if it didn't end up becoming anything, but it became exactly what I was expecting it to become, so that was a shame. And the character work was generally good, not the best ever. I didn't necessarily always connect with all of the characters as much as I wanted to, but I did sort of enjoy the fact that we mainly focused on the participants in the polyamorous relationship that this story was dealing with. What I do wish is that the author, so in this story we follow Alicia and her relationship with her girlfriend and her boyfriend and her girlfriend's boyfriend, because it's a 4-person poly relationship, and we also follow Alicia's conversations with her parents. She has a mother and a father who are her biological parents, and then she has another mother as well who's part of the poly relationship, and then her biological mum has another girlfriend who lives in a different state, and that's like a long distance part of the poly relationship. And we only ever see Alicia's interactions with her parents rather than getting any perspective from the parents, and I feel like that would have been a really nice addition to this story, because we've got the young adult perspective, the perspective of Alicia, who is navigating and learning how to make her relationships work whilst also in school and balancing a job and thinking about her future and all of those kinds of things that you deal with when you're that age. But then a nice, not contrast, but a nice addition, I think, would have been to follow the established relationship, the relationship that has existed for a number of years and is still never going to be perfect, because no relationship is ever perfect, but it's just a different perspective. I think they'd have different challenges, different problems, and I think that that would have been really, really interesting as sort of an addition to the story. And it's a short book, so I think there would have been the space for that, and I would have loved to have seen that. But I did really enjoy this one for what it did, and also it's self-published, so if it sounds interesting to you, I say give it a go, support the author, and enjoy just reading about a different kind of relationship, or at least it's a different kind of relationship to me, and I found that really enjoyable. So I'm now going to be moving on to The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dowell, and this one follows Ellie in a world that has been overtaken by an alien race, and books, art and music are illegal, and she begins a secret library, and I'm super looking forward to reading this one. It sounds really, really interesting and different to anything else I've ever read, and this cover though, I just love it, so pretty. So this one is a bit longer. This is sort of over 400 pages, whereas Hearts of Jerks was only 215, so it'll probably be a bit longer this time before I check in again with sort of an update on me having read this one, but I'm really looking forward to reading it, so I'm going to get into this one today, and maybe I'll check in with you partway through, or maybe I'll just wait until I've finished it like I did with Hearts of Jerks. I'm not sure, but I'm excited. Okay, so it's now actually Friday the 5th of June, and I haven't updated you for a while. The last few days I've mostly just been reading a lot of educational materials and non-fiction, so I haven't been reading as much fiction as I usually would. But I have been reading The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dowell. I'm currently on page 166, and this is excellent. This book is so great. I read maybe the first chapter or two and already knew that I was going to absolutely love this book and probably want to reread it at some point, so I ended up downloading the audiobook from Amazon so that I could read and listen, which is my favourite way to read, and I definitely wanted to read that way for this particular book because it's so good. So it follows, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to take away from the story, but essentially we're based on Earth after it has been colonised by aliens, and the human race is oppressed and controlled, and our main character is black, and she used to live in Brooklyn, I think, and then they moved to the Upper West Side, I think. I don't know too much about New York, but they moved to an affluent and predominantly white area, and I think it was the Upper West Side, but it might have been the Upper East Side, I don't know. Anyway, so all of their neighbours were white, and our main character, Jeanne, or Ellie as she prefers to be called, faced racism prior to the alien takeover, and now she faces even harsher oppression and control through this colonisation. And what's really interesting about this story is the way it's combining so many different elements. So we have what essentially is a first contact with aliens type story. So we have those elements of learning about this alien race, and actually there are 2 alien races to learn about in here. We also have slight War of the Worlds type themes because the aliens are trying to take over the planet Earth. We have Ellie, who is running an illegal library, so that's one element. One element is a focus on a love for art and literature. We have an alien who illegally loves music, so that adds to that same theme. We have a theme of unlikely friendships. We have very clear themes speaking back to the slave trade and also colonisation and the British Empire, and racism, everyday racism and oppressive racism and subtle racism and microaggressions, and sort of a very broad and nuanced look at all the different types of racism that they are. This book is fantastic, and I'm only 166 pages into this 426 page book. So I've still got like well over 200 pages left, and already it's fantastic. So I'm super glad I came across this one. This one by itself proves this experiment worthwhile. I don't really know what the point of this reading challenge is, but whatever the point is, this has proved that point. So that's my current main read. Today I am going to be doing a lot of marking for work, and honestly I find it a little bit draining and incredibly boring. I'm going to be reading what essentially boils down to 6 of the exact same essay today. So I need something to break that up that isn't this, because I want to just fall into this tonight and hopefully finish it tonight, because I really want to know what happens. That's the other thing about this one, is the pacing is just so good. Like, we're at page 166 and so not even halfway through the book yet, and we're past the point where I thought the story would have ended. So I have honestly no idea what's going to happen, and I don't know if this is a standalone. I think it might be, which is kind of sad, but I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. But anyway, so I want to just fall into that tonight and read it sort of solidly. So I'm actually going to pick up Cursed, the anthology that I have on this list today, to read in between essays. So my plan is to read maybe like 1 or 2 short stories in between each essay that I mark, just to break it up and stop me from going insane, basically, because this kind of marking is a little bit mind-numbing, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to start this morning and just read sort of little bits gradually. I probably won't read all of it today, because there actually are quite a lot of short stories in here. Yeah, so there are 20 short stories and it's 357 pages long. So I doubt that I'll manage to read all of that in between marking, but hopefully I'll make some good progress in here, and then, like I say, I will switch back to this tonight. Hello, it's actually now Sunday. I haven't updated you since Friday afternoon, but I did finish The Sound of Stars on Friday evening, or early Saturday morning, depending on how you look at it, and I don't really have anything to add. This book was amazing. It was so good. I can't find anything online about what the sequel's called, when it's going to be coming out, if there's going to be a sequel, but the end of the story very much leaves space for it to be quite a long series, to be honest, and I want more books in this world. I need them. I really want to know whether there are going to be any. So yeah, this book was just so great. I absolutely loved it. Then I have started Cursed. I haven't got very far in. I'm only on page 69. I've read the first 3 short stories and the poem and the introduction that start off the book. So I've still got quite a way to go with this one, but so far they are very dark and ominous and fairy tale-esque, so that fits the bill. And then I have also started The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea. This is what the stunning cover looks like, and I'm really loving this one too. I'm over halfway now. I'm on page 203 of 357, so I'll be finishing this one this afternoon, if not early this evening, but I am really enjoying this one as well. This is a multiple perspective story too, and we follow Evelyn, who is sort of high society, and she's been entered into an arranged marriage and is travelling to her betrothed. And we also follow another character named Flora, or Florian, and this particular character is gender fluid. So she was born female, so Flora was born female, but she lives on a pirating vessel, and this is difficult, it's difficult to explain. So we haven't been specifically told what Flora or Florian's pronouns are, but I think when it's Flora, it's she, her, and when it's Florian, it's he, him. So on board the vessel, it's Florian, and in the internal dialogue, it's Flora, but both are equal parts of the same person. So that's why my interpretation is that this is a gender fluid character, but it hasn't been specifically stated. That's just my reading of it, and if you happen to know a better classification for that experience, then please let me know. But that's the situation with the perspectives and where they are. There's also tons of queer rep in here, which is absolutely great, and there's also Japanese inspirations, which I really enjoy. And I don't really want to tell you too much about the plot, because just watching it sort of unravel is really interesting. The sea is an entity that has a voice and has thoughts, and then there are mermaids and witches, as you might anticipate from the title of the book. And the two characters are really interesting, and their perspectives are interesting, and I have to admit that I am not... it's split into parts. So the first part is the mermaid, the second part is the witch, and then the third part is the sea. And so far I'm not enjoying part 2 as much as I enjoyed part 1, but I am still enjoying it. And again, I downloaded the audiobook for it because I wanted to, and the audiobook is really good. It's a single narrator narrating the audiobook, but she's doing a really good job of differentiating the voices of the two protagonists, and the narrator is doing a pretty good job of differentiating between Flora's internal voice and Florian's external voice, if you know what I mean. So I'm really liking this one, and like I said, I will probably finish this one soonish. I've only got sort of 2 hours of listening time on the audiobook left, and then I will probably carry on with Cursed for a bit before moving on to Elysium Girls. I had hoped to finish this challenge this weekend, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think I've just been really struggling with concentrating on reading this week, because, or at least reading fiction this week, because I've been doing a lot of self-educating and things online. So that's been the majority of what I've been doing, is reading and watching videos and that kind of thing. So I haven't read as much fiction as I ordinarily would, but I'm really enjoying these books, and this challenge is working out so well. It's going really great actually. So I'm gonna get back to the reading and we'll update you at some point. Oh, I should also probably slightly address the fact that my hair looks different. No, I haven't been to a hairdresser. I had a moment of madness and took the scissors to my own fringe, which I had promised myself I wasn't going to do, and then I did it, and I don't know why I did it. I did it, and then immediately afterwards was like, where did that come from? Why did I do that? So it actually isn't too bad, I don't think. It looks mostly okay, I think, and it's a lot more comfortable because it's not constantly in my eyes. So in case you were wondering, that's what's happened halfway through this video. So there you go. Can't really remember where we left off, but I have finished reading The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea, which I enjoyed. Didn't like the last half or the ending as much as the beginning, but it was still good. So I have 2 books left to read in this particular reading challenge. So I have Cursed, which is the collection of short stories, and to be honest, I'm making my way through this quite slowly because it is very Grimm style fairy tales, so they are quite creepy and a little bit spooky, and if you know anything about me, I don't do particularly well with that kind of thing, so I'm struggling with this one a little bit because I'm a wimp. And then I'm also reading Elysium Girls by Pentecost. I'm not very far into this yet at all. I'm only on page 34. So I like it so far. I suppose it's really far too early for me to say. But again, my reading is just really slow. at the moment, but I'm hoping to get a good chunk of this read today. But yeah, I'm enjoying everything I'm reading. I'm just reading quite slowly, which is meaning that this particular reading challenge is taking quite a long time, and I really want to just get this video up for you guys, so hopefully I'll be able to finish these books soon so that I can do that. Right, so I haven't updated this reading challenge vlog in quite a while. I basically haven't been reading very much over the past week because I've been doing a lot of heavy duty marking for work, which has just meant that my eyes and brain have been really fatigued in the evening, so I just haven't been reading much. But I have now finally finished Elysium Girls by Kate Pentecost, and I'm still not really sure how to describe this book briefly, but I'm going to give it a go. So this story is set in the desert in a town called Elysium, and 10 years ago, so at the beginning of the story, we're in 1935, and the town is visited by the gods of life and death, who decide that it will be fun to play a game that will isolate Elysium and the surrounding savannah from the rest of the world, plunge them into a dystopian style desert setting where there's no rain and very little resource, and require them to prove that they can create a functioning society and also build up a store of food and stuff as sacrifice, and they have 10 years in which to do this. And it's just a fun little game between life and death, and we follow that story. The main character that we follow is Sal, who is a teenage girl in this community. There are some other perspectives as well, but we don't get introduced to those until a little bit later, so I don't want to talk about them. And this was a really very, very different kind of story. It's kind of dystopian, it's kind of fantasy. I was looking forward to the competition trope element of it, but that's not really there, so don't go into this expecting a competition style story. That's very much on the back burner. This is more a story of survival and struggle and figuring out your place, and there's magic and that kind of thing. So I think I would have enjoyed this more if it hadn't taken me so long to read it, and like I said, it took me a long time to read it just because I was struggling to read in the evenings in general. That's not because of the book. I don't necessarily think it was as gripping as it could have been, but it's still a book that I think if you like the sound of it, I definitely think it's worth picking up, because I don't think I've read anything remotely like this before. It is very, very different, and there's a lot that goes on later in the story as well that makes it very different that I don't want to tell you about because it happens much, much later on in the story. So I enjoyed Elysium Girls. The other book that I was working on has been Cursed, which is the anthology that I picked up, and I haven't finished this yet, but I am going to close out this vlog here. So I'm currently on page 236, so I have just over 120 pages left, but this vlog has been going on for a long time now, and to be honest, I need a little bit of a break from this, because this, unbeknownst to me, is a collection of kind of pretty creepy fairy tales. Some of them are very creepy, some of them are a little bit boring if I'm being honest, but most of them are quite dark and creepy, and I probably should have figured that out from the title and the fact that they are intended to be more like Grimm style fairy tales, but I'm just struggling to read these a little bit and to read them back to back in particular, just because if you know anything about me, you know I'm a wimp. This kind of thing I need in very, very small doses, which makes an anthology great, but reading the anthology back to back is just not really working for me. So I'm going to carry on reading it, but gradually, and I don't want to drag this vlog out any longer, so that's why I'm gonna put this one down for the purposes of the vlog here. I'm not DNFing it or anything. I am kind of enjoying it. I think I struggle to enjoy this kind of thing because it creeps me out quite a lot. I think if you like that kind of thing, this is perfect. If you want that kind of creepy horror thriller type vibe with lots of metaphor and undertones and lots of things that you can read into if you want to. I don't do that because it's already bad enough on the surface, but I'm sure there's a lot more creepiness if you dig down and read between the lines. So if that's your thing and you like short stories, then this is perfect for you. For me, it's a little tricky, and so I'm going to just allow myself to read it over a longer period of time, and I think I might enjoy it more that way, but definitely nothing wrong with this book. I think it's great. It's just I'm not exactly the perfect reader for this kind of story. I was expecting like more whimsical, and it wasn't until it arrived and I read the editor's introduction about it actually being more classic grim style that I was like, oh yeah, maybe not so much for me. So anyway, that's that one. So just to quickly go over the other 3 books that I read, since we're wrapping this up now. So I read Hearts Are Jerks by Gabrielle Harbury, which is a contemporary poly story. I kind of wanted a little bit more of the poly and a little bit more plot, but I enjoyed it. Overall, I particularly found it very, very interesting. Then I read The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dowell, which I now realise I've been saying her name wrong throughout this video, so I'm really sorry about that. It's actually Alicia Dowell. And this is my favourite book from this whole challenge. This was fantastic. I'm really looking forward to rereading it at some point, not straight away, but I will definitely be rereading this one. I bought it for my sister straight away after I finished reading it because it's so good. I highly recommend this one. If you pick up one book from this video, make it this one. This was fabulous. It's science fiction, very, very low sci-fi elements, and it's the commentary of our own society and our own history that goes on in this book that makes it so amazing, plus the relationships and the characters, fantastic. And the last book was The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hall. I really loved the first half of this story, very piratey and introducing us to the characters and starting to build the relationships, which was really, really interesting. The second part I didn't like as much. I'm not going to tell you what that was more like because it's the second part. It was just a little bit slower in my opinion and didn't feel as purposeful as the first half did, and then the final third did a really, really good job of tying everything together, and I just really liked this author's writing style actually, especially that very first section. I felt really immersed in the world and with the characters straight away, so I'm definitely going to look into whether or not Maggie has any other work. This is great. So on the whole, this challenge was really, really successful, and I was really looking forward to doing this challenge, and it's just unfortunate that things at work and especially in the world meant that the timing of this one wasn't great, if we're being honest. So I'm definitely going to do this challenge again. I will probably do it sort of maybe towards the end of the year and look at new releases that I haven't heard of from June, July, August, September and October. So I'll be looking to potentially do this again in sort of November, December time. Or if I feel like doing it earlier than that, then I might look at new releases from last January, February, March and April and May. So because I like I said, I really enjoyed this challenge idea and this reading process. It's just that the last week or so have been a little bit tricky, so mostly because of work, but I have also spent a lot of time focusing on educating myself rather than reading for enjoyment. So just the timing didn't work out, which is why I would like to do this challenge again at some point. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. Let me know what you thought of this particular reading challenge. Like I said, I quite enjoyed it, but it could have gone better, I think. And I suppose the takeaway from this particular reading challenge is that looking beyond what is popular and investing a little bit of time researching books that I've not heard of is very much a worthwhile thing to do, because I found some really incredible books that I had never heard of, and if I hadn't done this video I probably never would have heard of these books, with the exception of The Sound of Stars, which I've now actually heard quite a lot about since purchasing that book, mostly because of the Black Lives Matter movement, which, isn't it sad that that's what it took? But the point is, even if I don't do another reading challenge like this for a while, I am going to be investing some of my time into doing book research outside of BookTube and Instagram, because clearly I found some really great titles by doing that. So I think that's the moral of this reading challenge, if there is one. But that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.